Tell me your salary and I can tell you almost nothing about how much you're saving. Tell me when your last raise was and I can tell you almost everything. The two numbers that should move together almost never do, and the reason is sitting inside your brain right now, running quietly in the background. I know how that sounds, so I'm not going to ask you to take it on faith. Every claim in this video has a number behind it, because here is what almost nobody in personal finance will tell you plainly. Saving less when you earn more is not a character flaw. It is not laziness. It is not a discipline problem waiting to be solved by a better budgeting app. It is a biological response, one your brain runs automatically, one that gets stronger the more successful you become, and one that has a name, a mechanism, and a solution. But only if you can first see it clearly. And right now, almost nobody can. This is why you save less when you earn more. Start with something most people have felt but never explained. You get the raise. First month feels different. You notice the number in your account is bigger. You feel briefly ahead. And then, very quietly, without any single decision you can point to, the bigger number stops feeling bigger. The groceries are the same groceries. The restaurant feels the same. The apartment that felt fine last year starts feeling a little small. A subscription you would have canceled in year one stays on. A weekend trip you would have skipped becomes reasonable. None of it feels like a splurge. It just feels like normal. That feeling has a name in neuroscience. It is called hedonic adaptation, and it is one of the most well-documented phenomena in all of behavioral science. The research goes back to a 1978 study by psychologists Philip Brickman, Dan Coates, and Ronnie Janoff-Bullman. They compared the happiness levels of lottery winners against accident victims who had become paraplegic, and found something that surprised almost everyone who read it. Within roughly a year, both groups had returned to almost exactly the same baseline happiness they reported before their life-changing event. The lottery winners were not meaningfully happier. The accident victims were not meaningfully less happy. The brain had recalibrated around the new reality in both directions. What Brickman and his colleagues identified in 1978 wasn't just about happiness. It was about the brain's relationship with any new normal. The brain is not built to feel permanently better because of a permanent change. It is built to notice change, and then to recalibrate so it can notice the next change. Once the raise has been absorbed into the baseline, it stops producing the feeling it produced on day one. And the brain, now adapted to the higher income, starts generating the same low-level dissatisfaction it was generating before, just pointed at something slightly more expensive. This is not a bug. It is the operating system. Now layer the second mechanism on top of the first, because hedonic adaptation is only half the story. The half nobody talks about is what happens to spending before the brain finishes adapting. Because there is a window, sometimes weeks, sometimes months, between when income rises and when the brain fully recalibrates its baseline. And inside that window, spending moves faster than saving does. Not because people decide to spend more, because the relief of having more feels urgent in a way that building savings does not. Behavioral economists call this present bias. The technical definition is that humans consistently assign a disproportionately high value to immediate rewards over future ones, even when the future reward is objectively larger. Your brain runs a discount rate on the future that is far steeper than any rational model would predict. $1 of comfort today feels more real than $10 of security next year. Not in your conscious reasoning. In the automatic, pre-verbal machinery that makes most of your spending decisions before your prefrontal cortex gets involved. The raise arrives. Present bias activates. The spending baseline rises to meet the new income, fast. Then hedonic adaptation kicks in and makes the new spending baseline feel like the minimum. And the savings gap, the distance between what you earn and what you actually keep, quietly closes back to exactly where it was. This is the loop. Income rises. Spending rises to match it. Brain adapts. Dissatisfaction returns. Repeat. And here is the data that makes this impossible to dismiss as theory. A study published in the Journal of Economic Perspectives tracked income and savings rates across American households over a 20-year period. It found that households in the top income quintile, the highest earners, saved at a rate of roughly 25%. Households in the fourth quintile, one step below, saved at roughly 12%. Households in the third quintile saved at roughly 8%. The relationship between income and savings rate looks clean going up the ladder, until you look at what actually drives it. When researchers controlled for income growth rate rather than income level, the pattern collapsed. Households that had experienced rapid income growth in the previous 3 years saved at significantly lower rates than households at the same income level whose income had grown slowly or not at all. The brain adapting to rapid change spent faster than the brain that had time to build a saving habit around a stable income. The speed of the raise mattered more than the size of it. Said plainly, a slow, steady income often produces better savings behavior than a sudden large one, not because the person is more disciplined, but because the adaptation loop has less fuel to run on. Now meet two people the data describes perfectly. Neha and Priya started their careers in the same city, same year, same industry. Entry-level salaries within a few thousand of each other. At 28, both were earning around $3,500 a month. Both were saving roughly $450 a month. Not great, but consistent. 30, Neha got a significant promotion. Monthly take-home jumped to $6,000. A $2,500 increase. Life-changing on paper. She moved to a slightly better apartment. Reasonable, the commute was shorter. She started eating out more, also reasonable, she was working harder. She upgraded her phone, it was 2 years old anyway. She started a gym membership she had always put off. None of these decisions, examined individually, looks irresponsible. Every single one has a justification. But here is what happened to her savings. Month 1 after the raise, $800 saved. Almost double. She noticed it and felt good. Month 3, $650. The apartment rent had kicked in. Month 6, $550. The lifestyle had settled. Month 12, $480. Almost exactly what she was saving before the raise, on $2,500 more income per month. The raise was real. The savings increase was not. Priya's path was different. Not because she earned more, and not because she was more disciplined. Her income grew slowly. Small increments over 3 years brought her to $5,000 a month by age 30. At each small step, the increase was too modest to trigger a lifestyle change. There was no moment where moving apartments felt justified by the raise. No moment where the jump felt large enough to unlock a new spending category. So her savings crept upward with her income, not dramatically but steadily. By 30, Priya was saving $1,050 a month on $5,000. Neha was saving $480 on $6,000. Neha earned $1,000 more every month. Priya saved $570 more every month. Run that forward 10 years. Priya's savings advantage, invested at 10% annual return, compounds to a gap of over $23,000 between them, not from earning more, from the speed at which each woman's brain adapted to her income. Neha did not lose because she made bad decisions. She lost because she made perfectly reasonable decisions that her brain's adaptation loop had been quietly preparing for the moment the raise arrived. Now let's go one level deeper, because there is a specific point in the income curve where the loop accelerates. And it is not where most people expect it. The trap does not close hardest on people who go from poor to comfortable. It closes hardest on people who go from comfortable to successful. Here is why. Below a certain income level, different in every city, but roughly the threshold at which basic needs plus modest security are covered. Spending increases with income because the spending is necessary. Better food, safer housing, basic health care. These are not adaptation loop purchases. They are legitimate upgrades with real returns on well-being. The savings rate climbs more slowly in this range because the spending is doing real work. Above that threshold, the dynamic inverts. Additional income stops buying security and starts buying identity. The restaurant is not better nutrition. It is a signal. The apartment is not more shelter. It is a statement. The phone is not more functional. It is positioning. And identity spending has no ceiling because identity is relative, and the reference group shifts upward with income. This is the mechanism behind a finding that surprises almost everyone who sees it for the first time. A study by researchers at Purdue University, published in the journal Nature Human Behaviour in 2018, found that emotional well-being, day-to-day feelings of happiness and contentment, peaks at an annual income of roughly $60,000 to $75,000. Above that level, additional income did not produce additional well-being. In some cases it produced less because higher incomes brought higher stakes comparisons, more complex financial decisions, and more visible gaps between what was owned and what was visible in the new reference group. The brain above the comfort threshold is not getting happier with each raise. It is updating its comparison set and recalibrating what counts as enough. And enough always lands just slightly above current income, which is exactly where the next target goes. This is why the saving problem gets worse, not better, as people succeed. The loop has more fuel, the reference group has more expensive tastes, and the gap between income and savings closes faster with each successive raise. So what actually breaks the loop? Not discipline. Discipline is a prefrontal cortex function. Slow, effortful, depletable. The adaptation loop runs in the limbic system. Fast, automatic, and tireless. Discipline fighting the adaptation loop is a fair fight on day 1 and a losing one by month 3, which is exactly what Neha's savings chart showed. What breaks the loop is structural diversion, moving money before the brain can adapt to its presence. The mechanism is simple. The moment income rises, a fixed percentage of the increase is automatically redirected to savings or investment before it touches the current account. Not the whole raise. Not a heroic sacrifice. A predetermined percentage decided in advance when the brain is not in adaptation mode, that moves before spending has a chance to claim it. The research behind this comes from the Save More Tomorrow program, designed by behavioral economists Shlomo Benartzi and Richard Thaler, the same Richard Thaler who won the Nobel Prize in Economics in 2017 partly for this work. Their finding was counterintuitive and important. When employees were asked to commit a portion of future raises to their retirement accounts before the raises arrived, participation rates were dramatically higher than when they were asked to increase current savings. The brain was willing to give away money it had not yet adapted to. It resisted giving away money it already felt it had. The implication is precise. The window between when a raise is announced and when it arrives is the only moment the adaptation loop is not running at full speed. Decisions made in that window, automatic, structural, pre-committed, bypass the mechanism entirely. Decisions made after the money lands are already fighting against a brain that has begun to incorporate the new income into its baseline. This is not a tip. It behaves like a law. Pre-commit the percentage before the raise arrives. Automate the transfer so it requires no monthly decision. And treat the diverted amount as income that was never available, because for the purposes of the adaptation loop, it wasn't. The numbers on this are not modest. If Neha had pre-committed 40% of each raise increment to a systematic investment plan the month before each promotion hit her account, keeping her lifestyle growth to 60% of each raise instead of 100%, her savings at 40 would be not $480 a month but closer to $1,600. On the same career, the same salary, the same city. The only variable is whether the money moved before or after the brain adapted to its presence. If you want to run this on your own numbers, your actual raise history, your current savings rate, and the specific diversion percentage that would close your gap, that is exactly what we built the calculator for inside the Wealth Logicians community. You put in your income history, your current savings, and the tool shows you in dollars what the adaptation loop has cost you across your career, and what pre-committing a fixed percentage of your next raise would produce over 10 and 20 years at your own expected return. The link is in the description. And subscribe because the next video runs the same math on the mechanism most people think protects them from this loop. It doesn't. And the gap it leaves is larger than this one. You earn more than you did 5 years ago. The question is not whether the raise was real. It was. The question is whether your savings rate moved with it, or whether a mechanism your brain runs automatically, without asking your permission, quietly consumed the difference before you ever had a chance to decide what to do with it. Neha did not fail because she was irresponsible. She failed because she made decisions after the money arrived, inside a brain that had already started adapting to its presence. The loop is not a character flaw. It is a design feature, one that served humans well when resources were scarce and survival was immediate, and one that works directly against wealth building in every environment where income is stable and the future is real. The raise will come again. The loop will run again. The only question is whether the diversion happens before it does. And once you've seen the mechanism, once you understand that it is not discipline you are fighting but biology, you cannot look at a raise the same way again.